No, it's like
I know.
We'll call the meeting to order. First of all, thanks for everyone showing up tonight. We got a nice crowd. Nice to see a bunch of students from the Environmental Tech program with us tonight to flesh out the audience. And we may expect more, but we want to get underway because we do have a limited amount of time. So we'll get underway right now. First of all, an apology. We don't have bilingual services available, so I hope there's no one challenged by that. And if anyone. We have a bit of an outline of how it's going to unfold there on our screen, so you see kind of the topic areas. But they may wander away from that, but what they will not be allowed to wander away from is about a 15-minute time slot, because we do want to keep it over by 8 o'clock, and we want to have an opportunity for discussions at the end. One of the things that occurs regularly is that folks come to a renewable energy meeting thinking that renewable energy is going to be the solution to all their problems. They're going to have a minor investment, and there's going to be never any problems. They don't have to pay for electricity or any energy in the future. If you're here with that expectation, you're in the wrong room. Renewable energy is not so inexpensive as yet that is the case. We'd like to dream of that in the future, but that in the reality, I think, will come out tonight with our various guest speakers in terms of the real cost of energy, of renewable energy, and so look for that message in our discussions tonight. And so with that, we have other expectations, but we're going to allow the panelists to develop those expectations as we go along. So it's a real pleasure to host this forum. And so now I guess we'll get underway with Peter as our first presenter, and you see the kinds of things that Peter is going to be speaking to. But also, Peter, while you get underway, would like you to provide a bit of a background and your experience of renewable energy. So I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. While this is getting set up, for those of you who know Kevin, I'm assuming most of you here do, I have a new theory on renewable energy tonight, and I don't think we need wind or solar or geothermal. I think all we need to do is take Kevin's energy and bottle it. What do you think? That's all we need. You power more than ever seen. Thank you. So, I work with a startup right now. I'll give you a bit more background in a second, based out of Fredericton. Called Navico Power, and we're working towards becoming essentially an investment fund in New Brunswick focused solely on developing renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. So it's kind of a cool concept. Don't have time to go into the details, but that's the 1 second pitch on that on the company. So we'll go to the next slide. And quick background on myself. I've been doing this green thing for 25 years now. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I worked in Ontario. I graduated from UMB in mechanical engineering in '87. Then I went to Toronto for 12 years and came back here in 2000. And back in 1992, in January '92, so almost 25 years from now, is when I first started focusing on energy efficiency and environmental issues. And for those of us with an iron ring, I can poke fun at our own career, our own chosen path. But what I did to get started in this 25 years ago is I was working in a factory making car seats for a living, and we had $1 million energy bill, about $600,000 electricity, $400,000 natural gas, and it bothered me. And I actually created the first employee energy awareness program in Ontario for industry 25 years ago. And what we did. There were 350,000 square foot plant, big plant, about 350 employees, and we actually had 4 one-hour sessions over 4 months, and teaching people about energy and energy efficiency. And that big pump in the corner would consume so much energy and cost, $25,000 to $30,000 a year, whatever. And we ran a suggestion program along with this. And long story short, we ended up saving about $150,000 or 15% of our $1 million energy bill, and our total capital cost was $10,000. So the payback on that was like a week and a half. So I became known as the engineer with common sense. So that's why I poked fun at the MREAC. Anyway, so some of you may have seen the movie An Inconvenient Truth, Al Gore's little PowerPoint that he did about 10 years ago. He trained, back in 2006 and 2007, he trained 1,000 people to do that presentation live. Of those first 1,000 people, 20 Canadians got in, went down to Nashville. I was one of the first 20 Canadians to get in, along with Carl Divenboyd, some of you may know. He was another one from Atlantic Canada. The deal was you go get trained by Al Gore, and you do that presentation live within your community. You do 10 of those, and you've done your deed to society. That year it came out from January 2007 to May 2000. I did 55 presentations in 5 months for 12,000 people as a volunteer. And I have to give credit to Peter McGill, the principal at NBCC St. John at the time, where I was employed. I was lucky because I was outside of a classroom at the time. And he was extremely supportive of this. And there were days where I'd be like gone or going to Newfoundland for a day, and he'd say, "See you later, just get your project." And I was like, "Cool, thanks." So very, very supportive. So anyway, that led to co-founding. So I was in the States. I was a co-founder of Al Gore's Climate Reality Project Canada, where these 20 Canadians became 250. We trained 250 more. Now it was a whole bunch of them. So started that in 2007. About almost 10 years ago, I co-founded a company called Green Nexus out of Fredericton. Some of you a few years ago may remember a program called 1 Million Acts of Green on CBC, where people were encouraged to go online and share their act of green. That's we worked with CBC on that, so founded that, and now work with Navico Power. So that's a quick background on myself. I'll talk about wind. So Navico Power, again, based out of Fredericton. Some of you may be, if you're in out of Fredericton downtown by the bridge, by the police station and the TD Bank, you'll recognize this building. This building is owned by the Romani family, and we're working with them. And one of the first projects we're going to do is actually a complete energy retrofit of that building. It's about a 60,000 square foot building. The first floor is home to the Federal Court of Canada in Fredericton, and Service New Brunswick's head office is on the next 2 floors. Our intention is to make this the first LEED Gold certified existing building in New Brunswick and the second in Atlantic Canada. Probably about 18 to 24 months from now, that should be the greenest building in New Brunswick. So we're working on that. We're also developing a small-scale wind turbine that I'll talk about in a few minutes. That turbine is about 18 feet high, probably just a little higher than the ceiling, generates about 6 kilowatts. I'm going to talk about that for 3 or 4 minutes. And we're also hoping to land a project with NB Power, a 20 megawatt large scale wind turbine north of here up near Shipkin area as well. That's a proposal we put in back in April, and probably won't find out until Christmas, if not early next year, whether or not we won that. So that's a segue into the advantages and disadvantages of wind, small scale and large scale. This is a fantastic 6 graphs of New Brunswick. The World Wildlife Federation, WWF, you recognize the panda, they've been doing some excellent work. Now some of you may have seen these renewable energy maps of different jurisdictions around the world. Could be New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, China, doesn't matter. And they're great. They tell you where it's good for solar, good for wind, good for tidal and such. But it also, what World Wildlife Federation is working on, and they just actually launched this earlier this year, is they're actually taking these areas, but also laying over maps with respect to the further ecological impact of these types of technologies to the local ecology. So wind might be good, or solar might be good in a particular area, but is it good with respect to certain kind of species and that kind of thing? So top right-hand corner, so this is actually just a photograph of a map that WWF shared back in May. We were down at a workshop in St. John. But you'll notice, so basically, with those maps, red is really good, yellow is all right, and blue is eh. So you'll notice, for example, wind, the top middle, represents various wind speeds in meters per second around the province. And common sense would dictate that around the coast is optimal for wind. And you can notice here that, especially up around the Lamech-Shippagan area and around Shediac and down around the Campbell Deer Island and Grand Manan areas, great for wind. Great for wind. So that's sort of a big picture map, and I'll get a bit more detail about wind speed in a couple minutes. And solar, actually, Miramichi, up around here, is the prime spot for solar from an efficiency perspective in the province relative to the rest of the province. So lots of opportunities there when, like you mentioned, when the prices come down a bit further. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to talk for 3 or 4 minutes about large-scale wind and small-scale wind. This wind turbine is about 120 meters tall. The brand is Enercon. It's a German company. And this puppy will generate roughly at peak about 4.5 megawatts of electricity. So for those of you who've driven to Nova Scotia, past the wind farm there, those are about 1.5 to 2 megawatts, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I believe they're that size. So these are actually larger in scope. They actually have an elevator inside. To get a sense of scale of, there's a vehicle there. They're quite tall. And they would have to come over from Germany. So MB Power, earlier this year, put out, and will be doing so in early 2017, expressions of interest for private proponents or private industry to supply up to 80 megawatts of renewable energy. So that could be wind, solar, biomass, tidal, you name it. Of that, so to put 80 megawatts in perspective, that's a little over 2% of MB Power's total capacity right now. So basically, 2% of what MB Power has, they're saying we'll take that. Green energy. Not necessarily all 80 megawatts in one project. They'd like to kind of share it around the province, different technologies, different areas of the province. You've got to be politically correct about that. So we're one of many. So whether we win this or not, we don't know, to be honest. We hope we do, but there are other proponents. The other awesome thing about this expression of interest that MB Power has put out is that within the regulation itself states that we will bring on this renewable energy is that 51% ownership of these projects must be within New Brunswick, which is awesome. So it's not like a big company could come in from Ontario, Quebec, or Europe and say, hey man, we're going to put up a bunch of wind turbines here. Over half of the ownership of these projects have to be from within New Brunswick. So what are the advantages of large-scale wind turbines? Well, you don't have to pay the wind, right? So that's kind of cool. Free source, free fuel source. Another advantage, and they kind of tie together. So advantage and challenge kind of go together here. So basically, if you're looking to develop a project like this, you need to have a purchase contract from a utility in order to take this to the bank. You don't just say, hey man, we're putting up a wind turbine, let's sell it. A bit more work than that. So essentially what happens is the utility, whether it's, speaking of MB Power, hi there, how are you?
Good.
I better talk nice about MB Power now that I walked in. Good timing. We won't trash you, I'm kidding. So basically what happens is whether it's New Brunswick or Ontario or it doesn't matter, you as a private proponent developing a renewable energy project really need to know you've got at least a 20-year contract with the utility in order to sell your electricity. Because if you're going to the bank, you got to have something in the bank to say, hey, we're going to finance that. Imagine building a big shell of a store, stocking it, and going to the bank and saying, we think we're going to sell stuff. It doesn't work that way, but if you go to the bank and say, we know we're going to sell electricity for so many years, then yippee-ki-yay.
Reasons I wanted to help Harry and Vlad and the MREAC team. We have a rural economic development conference. We don't want someone from Halifax, Moncton, St. John, or Charlottetown showing up.
Based on the wind speed. So that wind speed is very, very important. Got 3 minutes, so I guess we'll go to the next slide.
You can have my time.
Oh, can I have your time too?
I'll take 5 of his. And they'll take
Sure,
5.
They actually have an elevator inside. Get a sense of scale of, there's a vehicle there. They're quite tall. They would have to come over from Germany. So MB Power earlier this year put out, and will be doing so in early 2017, expressions of interest for private proponents or private industry to supply up to 80 megawatts of renewable energy. So that could be wind, solar, biomass, tidal, you name it. Of that, so to put 80 megawatts in perspective, that's a little over 2% of MB Power's total capacity right now. So basically 2% of what MB Power has, they're saying we'll take that. Green energy. Not necessarily all 80 megawatts in one project. They'd like to kind of share it around the province, different technologies, different areas of the province. You've got to be politically correct about that. So we're one of many, so whether we win this or not, we don't know, to be honest. We hope we do, but there are other proponents. The other awesome thing about this expression of interest that MB Power has put out is that within the regulation itself states that we will bring on this renewable energy is that 51% ownership of these projects must be within New Brunswick, which is awesome. So it's not like a big company could come in from Ontario, Quebec, or Europe and say, hey man, we're going to put up a bunch of wind turbines here. Over half of the ownership of these projects have to be from within New Brunswick. So what are the advantages of large-scale wind turbines? Well, you don't have to pay to win, right? That's kind of cool. It's free source, free fuel source. Another advantage, and they kind of tie together, so advantage and challenge kind of go together here. So basically, if you're looking to develop a project like this, you need to have a purchase contract from a utility in order to take this to the bank. You don't just say, hey man, we're putting up a wind turbine, let's sell it. A bit more work than that. So essentially what happens is the utility, whether it's, speaking of MB Power, hi there, how are you?
Good.
I better talk nice about MB Power now that I walked in. Good timing. We won't trash you, I'm kidding. So basically what happens is whether it's New Brunswick or Ontario or it doesn't matter, you as a private proponent developing a renewable energy project really need to know you've got at least a 20-year contract with the utility in order to sell your electricity, because if you're going to the bank, you got to have something at the bank to say, hey, we're going to finance that. Imagine building a big shell of a store, stocking it, and going to the bank and saying, we think we're going to sell stuff. It doesn't work that way, but if you go to the bank and say, we know we're going to sell electricity for so many years, then yippee-ki-yay. So they're the real advantages. Again, free energy. The challenge is, so this is not an easy thing to do, quite frankly, and one of my favorite statements is, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So it ain't that easy. What are some of the challenges? Number one, again, the advantage is you can go to the bank with a 20-year contract if you land the deal. But the disadvantage is you need to get to a point where you can actually, with confidence, say we are ready to be able to go get that contract. There's a lot of work involved in doing that. So I can talk about that a bit more in the last point. I assume some of you know what NIMBY means. That would be an acronym for Not in My Backyard. So just literally on the news 2 nights ago, in southern Ontario, actually near Leamington, And there's a small island. What's that island called? Because of A.
Not sure.
Okay. Anyway, I'm kind of down near Windsor, Detroit area in Ontario. There's a small island where, not very large, probably about the same size as Deer Island is my guess. And there's a proposal to put a number of wind turbines on that island because it's good wind. Well, the people that live on that island don't want them there, period. So that's not in my backyard. So even though we all may say, we want green energy, we want to talk about climate change, we don't want any more of that coal, but guess what? I don't want that in my backyard either. So the amount of work that goes into dealing with the community, discussing with people in the community that these wind turbines are going in, what are the effect, you're not going to get cancer from them, you're not going to get dizzy, but every day you're going to wake up and see this thing that's, about 350 feet high, maybe something equivalent about a 35 to 40 story building. It's kind of like, I got to get used to that. So that's not in my backyard. So there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that you're not going to get the people in that community ticked off at you. And a lot of that work has to happen really before you actually go in there. Because it's a whole lot easier to go to the utility and say, we've got buy-in from the local community as opposed to, oops, later, don't look good on you. The other, not challenges, but work that you have to go through in order to make this happen are things like negotiating the use of the land. So, for example, we're working with a partner who owns the land up there, fortunately. He saw the potential for this down the road. But he was astute enough to know that he had to start working with members of the community in order for them to buy into this and possibly lease their land as well. So we're dealing with a landowner who's got roughly 280, 300 acres, but he actually has access to about 1,000 acres, and he's actually got the buy-in from those local landowners to participate in that. So that is a process unto itself. Also, these landowners, they're typical boilerplate, for the most part, boilerplate contracts that landowners have with the development company so that they get, quite frankly, a piece of the action based on your sales. So if you're putting up a wind turbine on my property, I want a piece of that.
3 minutes, please.
Okay, and really? Oh crap, okay, sorry, we'll do it. And Met Tower, so actually a tower to keep track of the wind. So typically you need at least 1 year of data, so you don't just decide, we're going to put up a wind turbine. What you really need is at least a year of data, because the wind at 80 or 100 meters in the air, you need to know what that is, because that is your real goal. So that will determine how much energy you're actually able to produce and finance based on the wind speed. So that wind speed is very, very important. That's 3 minutes, so I guess we'll go to the next slide.
You can have my time.
I'll have your time too.
I'll take 5 of his. And he'll take
Sure,
5. I argued to him on that too. So
That's why I'm 3 or down
Yeah.
2.
you're-
We're okay?
You got lots.
5 minutes? All right.
I am the moderator here.
I think that's a video. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and that got challenged there, but that's all we needed to see. That goes size, but yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened there. So this is a small-scale wind turbine that we're developing. We're hoping to manufacture these in the province of New Brunswick. So this is a small 6 kilowatts. So this would power a house or 2 or 3, depending on how efficient the home is. If you go back and forward again, that would actually hopefully come out right. And just don't hit the lens. Oh, crap. Must be an auto. There we go. So you can see what turns there. So the theory here is that, well, actually it isn't theory. It actually works for real. Those diffusers or sails actually accelerate the wind coming into the blades. So it actually speeds it up. It operates at slow speeds. And it also, this box here, it's about 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet, houses batteries in the inverter and all the electronics and controls. So it actually acts as an energy storage device too. So you're actually getting energy not just when you're spinning around, it actually stores them. The batteries act as a buffer. The challenges with this, various applications. So great in remote areas, so if you're way off the grid or you want to have a cottage in the woods or a camp and you don't want to have that diesel generator going, in the background, just stick one of these up. Challenges, so you do need wind data, so if you know what the average wind speed is, you can then work backwards to determine the value of this on a per kilowatt hour basis. So if there's no wind somewhere, it's not going to be like, yeah, we'll sell you one. Well, how high are the trees? You got to be a certain percentage above the tree line, for example, that kind of thing. So
It's a rural conference. For someone that's in Miscou Islands that wants to be off the grid, that wants to know how to create their own energy source, distribute their own energy source, and this is a conference about it. It's expensive, and it's organized by a rural group out of Nova Scotia, and Patty can relate to that. It's the bay. What's the bay near your, starts at N, Malapet Bay? No, it's near Cape Breton. No, I forget now. Anyways, it's a very rural area, and the reason I'm concerned is that I talked to some people from Labrador, Newfoundland, that have 400 people that live in these communities, and they're tearing down their houses because of energy. They can't afford to heat these buildings. Even Dell Housing has issues right now to try to keep the older buildings heated. So what can we do? Yes. So I'm going to hand this around, this World Conference. And so we're going to spend 4 days. There's energy panels at this conference in here in Miramichi at the Agricultural Exhibition Center. And this year, Solar Renewables Workshop is kind of a pre-planning session for that. But even if you can't come, MREAC's looking for ideas. Here we're looking at Renewables New Brunswick's looking for ideas of what mandate that we should look at in Miramichi for renewables. And I'm not I'm a civil engineer, materials inspection, now environmental technology instructor. I'm not looking for everybody to come to a common theme that wind is it, or solar thermal's it. I'm just looking for a hybrid solution. And it takes a team to do it. It takes a community. And with all the projects we do in Miramichi, I think if we get together and look at these renewable projects as a community, we'll be more successful in the future. And I don't want to do a renewable revolution. It's only an energy source. But there's a lot of solutions, but number one is energy efficiency. And I've been to homes and many homes, and one in particular, their attic's not insulated. Am I going to put a solar panel on it? No. Okay? You're going to do you're recommend energy efficiency is number one. No matter what we talk about here, the energy efficiency is number one. MV Power doing a great job since I've ever known on energy efficiency. Keeping that. The province have energy efficiency programs. Even the St. Michael's Church have retrofitted their lightings. It's a lot of savings. You know what their energy bill is a year? $90,000. You know where they got it down to? $88,000. So they saved $2,000 on just energy lighting. Is that a lot? No. They need to look at some way to thermal heat a church. What are they going to do, right? And it really is a community problem. What do you do? I'm not getting into save the church, save the community or anything, but what are we going to do for our kids' future in new ways? And look what Ontario's in for right now. I don't know if you heard the news yesterday, but they had this great fit program and they just scrapped a lot of major renewable developments. You know why? Because people are paying too much for the utilities from the investment of renewables. Okay? And then they just announced yesterday LNG and the West. You think because of $39 billion project, now people are going to invest in renewables when they got liquid natural gas right there? So there's a lot of political issues that we can't touch, and a lot of policy decisions, but I think as a community we can do our own. And I've seen it in Europe, he's seen it in Germany, and I've seen it in the UK. We can do it. It's just we need to work together to do it. So this conference that I just sent, this brochure, is a 4-day conference, and the students behind you are actually volunteering, hopefully jumping in on panel discussions to decide their future to stay in the province of New Brunswick. Because if the energy prices get too high, people aren't going to stay here. So that's my little spiel about energy systems. And so this is one way to finance it. If you look at here, all the things that are in there, looks might be Greek to all of you, but funding's number one. You need a proposal, terms, you need a selection, a criteria, what's it doing. If you look at 7.5, energy efficiency. So those are all points, and you gotta figure out, so I do $1 million project, what percentage of in-kind am I willing to throw in to invest in that renewables? Okay, what am I gonna do to get this, what's my expected outcomes? So this is some of the things you have to write. If you keep going down, and keep going down right here. So these are the guidelines. So again, this one's due October 31st. Is this the only program? No, there's other programs. This is an innovation program. I work in the mobile idea space as part of MBCC. Guess one of our mandates are for the whole province is energy efficiency. So we have funding for project proposals. So if you have an idea for innovation for your own project, let us know at MBCC. We can help you support that innovation in our mobile idea space for technology initiatives. So whether it's a solar panel, it's geothermal, you know, if something's done in Europe, why not here, right? So if you've got an idea, it's time to get it out there and get it prototyped and get it into the consumer market. So, and this is a way to do it. These guys will support $300,000 to $5 million for new ideas or innovation, for clean innovation projects. It could be electric solar charger for a carport, you know, for the new cars that are coming, the Chevy Bolts. It could be for a fleet of electric cars for your corporation. Okay, so the idea is it's time to get your design thinking together and figure out what your proposal will be. And again, this is not the only one. There's a lot of other funds out there. There's a Northern Fund that Bill Fraser supports on innovation. So there is a Northern Fund for any projects that are in the north. And COA has innovation funds. There's a lot of innovation funds that are out there to help support your project. The final thing, when you're assessing a site, you need what's called an energy audit. Okay? So when we did the church of St. Michael's as a solar park, there's a lot of things you need to see, whether it's the windows, the site. But we did a solar and awareness project. Maybe go to the MREAC site is a final thing that I did the last year actually. If you go to MREAC.org, we actually did a solar awareness strategy for the city of Miramichi. And just with a plane, we flew across Miramichi, and we used what's called LiDAR to find out every possible rooftop in Miramichi that could put a solar panel on. And I think there's 8,152 solar potential houses. Anyways, the computer did all the work, but it doesn't know how high the trees are or if the roof is over 10 years old. But you've got to have a roof. But really, does the solar have to be on the roof? In St. Michael's, we're actually putting it on the ground. It's called a ground mount. Just to tell you how big it is in the world, I got a call 2 weeks ago to be a technical advisor for South Carolina for 680,000 panel solar array on 200 acres. Okay? And it's like 40 megawatts. Those are projects that are happening. Why not here? You know, we have the best solar in Miramichi. We got the space. But look, if you look at here, look at the right, that's a satellite, that's every possible rooftop for solar. So what they do in the States, in South Carolina, they go to a community and go, we're going to put the solar on your roof, and we're going to keep your same payment for the next 10 years. But you pay us, and we'll put on that free. And they got whole communities putting solar panels, complete subdivisions for free. And so their power bill never changes for heating their house or power. So there's a lot of strategies. It's just getting our ideas thinking out there, getting some financial support to make this strategy happen. So MREAC did heat maps with Vlad and Harry of the Miramichi, and if you look at it, that was not done with any survey work. That was done one flight plane across Miramichi. So the potential's there for rooftop installations, but do you want to even I've been in a house, they had trees that were 80 feet high. The lady didn't want to cut them down, so they had solar shade, right? And then she didn't want to put a hole in the roof, right? So, you know, so there's a lot of issues, practical issues, that you can't put solar panels on, or a solar panel that's a roof. But anyways, you really got to, you know, assess your sites. What do you really want to do? You want a community-based, residential-based, commercial, industrial-based. One thing we announced, we're go back to efficiencies. We just have a grant now for our 2 buildings for $5.3 million, I think it was, Todd, for energy efficiency for our rooftops. That's a start. You know, we're role modeling at MBCC by doing that. We're spending $5.5 million almost just to make our roofs more insulated and protected. So moving energy forward, I hope to see you guys at this conference. We're going to continue the discussions. Is it 100, 135, 39, 25? What is our solution? You know, we do have a nice river here. Okay. So thank you very much. Yeah.
So thank you, Kevin,
Yep.
and appreciate that. So now we're going to turn to our final speaker on our panel before we open to questions. Don Shaddick has a lot of very practical experience we're going to now benefit from, and he will take us through whatever session he's got for us in the next 15 minutes. Don, please.
Can the boys use up 5 minutes side?
Take what you need.
Hi, I'm Don Chaddick. I own a company called Don, and we're a panel builder. We do automation for water treatment plants, local municipalities, any kind of industrial application that needs to automate something. And a lot of times, we're asked to provide data from a remote source. And lots of times there's no power. In fact, most sort of remote places, it might cost $30,000 to get the hydrant put in 10 poles. So there's no payback. There's no practical way of doing it. So we end up putting in solar power, batteries, sometimes backup generation. And I can tell you the costs aren't cheap. And our usual requirement is, if we're putting cameras in, it's 6 watts a camera. If we're putting in a PoE switch, it's another 10 watts. And you just keep adding things in. And the last job that we did, it was 200 watts continuous usage. It was cameras, it was fiber optic connections to another building. It turned out to be 4 solar panels, 4 batteries, charge controller, inverter, backup generation. And if you add that up real quick, plus the labor of putting it in and how remote that location was, it was $25,000. That's a lot of money for 200 continuous watts, and that's 2 light bulbs, right? So that's where the industry was 2 years ago. This year, we might be able to do that for $20,000 or something, because prices have come down. There's no doubt that they've come down. What else can I tell you about? The cost of putting solar in, I think, is only a last resort. I think with a little bit of wind that you could get at night or stormy weather, it would go a long way to reducing the amount of times that your generator would come on. We've never experimented with wind, but it's available now at a probably 600 watts for $1,000. I'm not sure how long they would last in that environment, but that would be a practical way of not using so much propane as what we use for backup generation. One of the practical things that you've got to remember about in the wintertime here, we only have about an hour and a half on a nice sunny day to get your batteries up and get them floating. During the summer, we got lots of time. But in the wintertime, we don't have so much. And that probably starts around December the 21st and carries on into the spring. And it's a pretty tough thing. That system that I was just talking about, the generator came on twice in February, which means we did a pretty good job of sizing the unit. That was after about 4 days of no sun, storm, snow. And one of the things that would surprise us is how quickly the solar panels cleared themselves of snow. As soon as there was a corner off, it just seemed to be within an hour, we were back up and generating lots of power.
What about the size of the wattage now, what they're getting up there? You mentioned 305 now, which,
Yeah, and it's well under $1 a watt, as these guys know, and it's amazing where the solar panel. The unfortunate thing is that the sexy part of the advertisement is solar panels are under $1 a watt now. But the equipment that goes with it is not even close. And it's very elegant. It's nice in our world. We love programming, and it takes some time and energy to set things up and to convert a generator over to a 2-wire start. So the automatic generator will start the batteries or start the generator when the batteries get down to 11.5 volts and bring them back up. They run in 4 hours. You know, it's all great stuff, but it's all mechanical parts you're looking at. Doing backup. If you don't put backup in our world, you don't have anything. It's not really that hard.
you just came back from Toronto, right, Don? Like, did you see differences with that FIT program, with solar there? Like, is there any lessons we can learn from that? You know, like.
I don't think so.
No, no.
I don't.
Yeah.
Right now, we're looking at a system where the customer bought a 20-foot CCAN, and if you're familiar with what a CCAN is, it's what people transport furniture and material from China to North America. And when they arrive on our coast, they never ship them back because it's too expensive to ship them back with nothing in it. So he bought one of those, beautiful. We're putting batteries in it, charge controller, an inverter, backup generation, and the solar panels are going across the roof and it's facing. So it's a really practical, strong, secure way to do something out in the woods. And what we're adding to that, we're adding an alarm system, we're adding IP cameras, and he's going to be able to turn his propane stove on remotely, have it up to 72 degrees before he shows up at his camp on the scooter. And it's all going to be controlled over a cellular hub, which is what we used in the previous job that we did. And he's going to know the condition of the batteries, the voltage of the battery, the temperature, the room temperature, and that data is 30 seconds old, and it's all in the application that we're using. It's in Eugene, Washington. It's on a database there, and it's accessed right on your phone. And the thermostat is going to be a Wi-Fi thermostat that you can buy anywhere, and just configured to work in your home. No different than, he's already got a really expensive cell booster there because there is no signal. Backup generation is the most critical piece of that. Otherwise, I don't believe it's secure enough.
Don, can you speak a bit to structural considerations for energy efficiency in residences? Or others, perhaps?
Somebody mentioned here that the most important thing is conservation, and that is absolutely true. I bet you it costs about 10% to conserve a little power. I don't even really know what the number is. Than it would be to buy solar and anything to overcome the energy loss. It just is a lot easier, less expensive, not as sexy, but a way more practical. Todd came to our house in his other life because my wife saw homes on homes. Our bedroom is over our garage. and it was always cold. And she thought we should spray foam it. So we tore everything out, insulation, everything. This company came and sprayed it, and I gotta tell you, she was right, as usual. It appears that Homes on Homes knows what he's talking about. And I think it reduced our costs. In my own home, I have geothermal. And I have 2 of these panels. I've had them for 2 years. I haven't got the money yet. They're like a lot of things. But I also have in-floor heating on a new section of our home. And that's my goal this fall, get that up and working. To give us another, I have 80 gallons of storage. And when we were talking about the youth home,
Yeah.
I was there in February, that thing stopped working. Kevin got me to go take a look and see what was going on. It was simply a zone control. We fixed it, but it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when we did that, so there was no way of testing it. So the next day, I took some time and went back. I arrived at about 9 o'clock, and I watched all the pressures, all the flows, all the temperature changes, and the delta between what was coming in and what was going out, because that stuff is all available on that system that Kevin put in. And the delta between what was going in and what was going out, when everything was working, getting going, was 20 degrees. So it was heating water, taking out 20 degrees and shoving it back to the roof. At about 11 o'clock, the tank, or the 200 gallons of storage?
Yes, 200.
That was satisfied. And what Kevin, he put in a couple of radiators.
Banquet.
Yeah, that went out to a room. So there was really like 3 or 4 more hours of sunshine. And for the rest of the day, that water never got used up. And so there was heat going up, but the delta was only 5 degrees. And I mentioned that to him, and if they put in about 3 more radiators at that same size, they could have had all of that energy, not flipping it back into recycling. But they never did anything with that. But that's another very inexpensive thing that they could just pipe that heat to other rooms and save some money. So I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
Have anything else to?
Your time is about gone.
Just so you know,
Thanks so much.
that system cost, took $3 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3, yeah. Thanks.
Well, thank you, panelists, all, for that, those interesting presentations. Now we're going to open the discussion to the floor. There's a few things I wanted to advance the discussion into my own area here. But first of all, anyone have a burning question for any one of our panelists this evening? We have one over here.
Do you think the best solution would be like a combination of wind and solar? Probably, I don't know, geothermal, but pretty expensive, but would it be the best solution in New Brunswick?
Oh, I'll take a whack. It really varies. There's no silver bullet. Depends where you are. I mean, you could be here and your neighbor could be there, and geothermal might make sense here, and wind and solar might make sense next door. How tall are your trees? What's the geology? It really varies. It really does vary on a number of variables. Scotty.
I'll get a situation with that guy I know who put geothermal in. He put a bunch of wells in, and all of a sudden his geothermal pump was actually costing more because it wasn't working right. He even changed the heating plates in his house, thinking it was something in the house. It was because he didn't have enough wells. He didn't test the soil. So he wasted tons of money on not drilling enough wells to get that thermal heat from the soil, from the conductivity of the soil. So you really got to know your stuff when you're designing, whether it's solar, hot air, thermal, geothermal. You really got to know your systems to get some good experienced installers.
I'd like to bring up this whole matter of site assessments and whether or not there is for this area, this part of the world, a calculator that a resident or business could use in order to determine what their potential is, whether it's for wind power, small wind, or photovoltaic, or geothermal or otherwise? Is there a calculator that we can easily adapt and use for our own settings here?
Probably that map that I, glad you brought, man. Literally, wow. Eyes in my head. Holy crap. Wow. There's the answer. In all seriousness, so from a wind perspective, it's like two levels of due diligence, really. This map is a great starting point. But when you look at, for example, up around Shippigan and Lamec area, that could vary quite a bit. Plus, it could vary at the height as well. So if you are, I don't remember the exact detail, but there's a certain percentage you should be above the tree line because of the turbulence in the air above the trees. So you got to be a certain height above a tree line. So if there are a lot of trees, you got to be a certain height, which increases the cost, for example. So this is sort of your first level of common sense from a diligence perspective. The second level would be, does a particular location make sense? Because even in that, up around Lamec and Shippigan or Shediac or down in the southwest, where it says 9.9 meters per second mean speed at a certain, like I believe that's at 80 meters elevation. It could be 9.2 over here, and it could be, go over there 4 kilometers, it could be 9.8. And from a development perspective, that difference of 9.8 meters per second and 9.2 on a 20 megawatt wind turbine farm, that could be a couple $100,000 a year, plus or minus. You really got to have good data. It really varies.
Getting right down to a site-specific spot, for instance, my own home, it was built as a passive solar home about 30 years ago. The property behind it was pretty much a clear cut, an open field. And now I've got 20-meter trees that are up there, and I no longer have a passive solar home. Also structurally, what is my requirement for, say, a whole panel on the side of the building for putting the solar panels on? And what lifespan should my 3-in-1 shingles have if I'm going to go through that? So there's a bunch of very practical applications. And the reason we ask is that we'd actually like to be in a position to assist residences in our own area here to actually do site inspections, site assessments, somewhat unofficially under radar, but assist these ones in terms of thinking about what it would take for them to convert their properties into to renewable energy sites. Anyone care to tackle that?
Go ahead. I'm going to bring up the other slide here.
I'm just going to dance while Kevin brings up another slide.
Yeah, I will.
Which way is your house facing?
South.
Okay,
And
good
north.
start. The roof, which way is it facing? The roof side that's facing the right way, right? So there's an issue. Wind, shade. I'm not going to use residential for some. Well, actually, I'm two parts of the answer. One that's specific, but like Kevin said earlier, I really think that the most important part is you've got people here with a skill set in order to be able to assess that. That's just answer number one. And the other thing Kevin mentioned too, with respect to all those rooftops in Miramichi, I'll give you an example, and this goes back to Ontario for a second, and not here, just based on personal experience about 7 or 8 years ago. So back, Kevin mentioned, and you were witness to the Speed and Terror program, the FIT program in Ontario. So back about 7 or 8 years ago, the government of Ontario really put in an incentive to install renewable solar wind. And so we're talking goofy amounts, like 70, 80 cents per kilowatt hour. Not like 10, like we're paying, but like 7 or 8 times that. And at the time, I was working for an industry association that represented about 25 million square feet of rooftop. So about 600 manufacturing facilities, add them all up. So picture all the Walmarts or all the Home Depots in Ontario, add them all up at a couple 100,000 square feet per building. And yippee-ki-yay, there's 25 million square feet of rooftop. So all these developers started knocking on my door saying, hey man, can you give us a business card of all those people that represent all those rooftops? I'm like, whoa, there's got to be a way to make some money on this one, right? So, but the reality was, and again, this is what I get back to, there's no magic bullet with any of this. You think, okay, here's even 1 million square feet, right? Or a bunch of different buildings. So analogous to your shingles, we started getting issues like, okay, some buildings are leased. Who's the owner? How long do they plan on owning the building for? Is a question. Some buildings with less than up to code electrical panels, distribution systems in the plant. Typically what happens, you know this way more than I do, what happens if you start adding to that panel, you gotta come back up to code. The building owner's like, well, if I don't touch this, I don't have to spend $500,000 bucks. If I do touch it, I can spend $500,000 bucks just to get started. There's an electrical barrier. Concerns like if we put panels on the roof and there's leakage through the roof, who's liable? So, yeah, you can write in the contract, but at the end of the day, if there's a roof leak at 3 o'clock in the morning, who's the one getting a phone call? Who's the one getting sued if it damages something? So a lot of those non-technical challenges come into play, and what we figured in hindsight was roughly what you thought you were starting with 1 million square feet of yippee-ki-yay, we're all gonna get rich. You might be looking at 10 to 15% of that capacity for those challenges, so it'll work in some places. To answer your question, specific to rooftops and all that stuff, what I would suggest from a fit, I'm just making this up on the spot right now, and I've never been known to do that before. Start with someone who's got good experience in the field, but you know, typically there are only, you know, the housing stock in any given city, you're going to have a range of rooftops, age-wise, right? You're going to have different angles. You know, you're going to have your 12 and 45 degrees. You're going to have low and high. You know, a lot of homes built pre-40s and 50s would be likely a 12 pitch, 45 degrees because they're older ones, and then the, you know, the 60s, 70s, 80s, the Kent homes would be like this, right? So that's got to be taken into account. When were the, like I said, the shingles last changed? What's the structure like, et cetera, et cetera. If you were to, this would be an awesome project for a bunch of NBCC students right here. Guys got to do something next April for 6 weeks. Think of a project right now. Here's one for you. I just made this up on the spot. Find yourself some more money. So do a survey of a number of homes that represent sort of a typical distribution of homes in the city of Miramichi, and get an idea statistically what would make sense. So basically build a template for, you know, bring in an expert, say this would work, this would work, this wouldn't, and then you've got sort of the equivalent. You stole my slide.
I know.
You got that equivalent of it.
Go back.
So with your slide that you had, here's the potential for all rooftops, right? So that's yeehaw number one. Yeehaw number two is you do that project that two of you are going to do next April for 6 weeks or May, and you're all looking at each other like, do I really want to do that? We're not going to bunch of divorce and look at rooftops. But perhaps someone with some expertise could offer up what a template could look like. They do a survey to say, we believe that 65% of the homes in Miramichi, or 4,500 homes, have the potential now because they meet these 3 preliminary filters of structure, angle, direction, is it in the middle of the woods, et cetera. Maybe 4 or 5 of those filters. Then you filtered it down to a potential of these homes, and then bring in the expert if they're serious. You've kind of got 3 levels of
I was going to say that. Go back to the last slide, the internet there, yeah, right there. This here is a tool that analyzes homes based on some small critical information to generate, you know, what your efficiency is, and then you can, once you know all that, you can apply the stuff into other programs. But this is by NRCan. You go at the top there. NRCan supplies all these software modeling tools free. This was by Can Energy, just Red Screen, that does commercial sites for solar. And these are all free tools by NRCan that help you size and see if your house is a hot 2000 house in this case, or, you know. And so there is a lot of template software to help you out to determine the energy load, and do you need more insulation, or and go just up to energy resources. Just one, yeah, thanks, Vlad. Anyways, NRCan are a big supporter of these software tools, and they've been pushing this Red Screen for years now, and it's an international software product. It's It's amazing, spreadsheet based. If you're into spreadsheets, you want to do some modeling for solar or other, it's a great product. So if you're a computer geek, this is a good place to go, and or get your son or daughter to do it. To do energy design.
Kevin, structurally, what Harry may have been getting at, I'm not too sure, but structurally you can go onto the codes and say, well,
Yeah.
you need your rafters have to be yay big in this configuration to hold the snow load and all of that sort of thing. When you put solar on a roof,
Mhm.
is it simply a matter of just adding that weight
No,
to the?
you've got your wind loads and your snow loads too on top
Yeah,
of that. So
yeah.
now, like Don said, he's right. The youth has, I've never seen snow on it. The
No.
snow doesn't stay on the solar panels. I'm telling you.
Mhm.
Especially the solar hot air, the vertical. But if you have your solar panels at latitude, which is more efficient, in the winter, you're gonna have you're not gonna have snow on it.
Does it
I've
catch
never-
underneath or?
It channels it, and like, your house, sometimes you have your car in the driveway, and it channels around your structure. Same thing with solar panels.
Mhm.
The snow seems to channel around the structure.
And there are different designs, different structures, whether you're going on a flat roof or a roof like that. And, like I said, when a civil engineer really should look at it, and one example I like to use, let's say that's your rooftop, and it's designed, most rooftops are about that. And the wind's gonna come along and just kind of blow over it, right? And now picture you've got a car, and you go down to the hardware store, Ken, you buy a bunch of 2x4, you're gonna land your car flat like that, right? You put it on your roof like that, you're not gonna get too far without that end up in the windshield of the car behind you, right?
Mhm.
So it's the same kind of thing, but, really, it should be looked at first by civil engineers, sign off there for wind loads and wind speeds and, whether your angles like that, so it's.
The big thing in the mount installer is I'll put the mounts directly in your roof truss. A lot of, newbie installers will mount it right in the roof.
Mm.
Forget it. You gotta go right in the truss, right in the roof structure. And that's a mistake people make. When the wind hits it, it just rips her right out. And you don't wanna, there's just some general rules, when you're doing structural mounts.
Question back.
Kevin,
Yeah, yes.
in your St. Mary's project,
Yes.
what is your cost per kilowatt hour?
Who, you
What-
mean
what are you
the same,
producing?
you mean the Basilica?
Yes?
Okay, it's, I have the energy audit, I can get you that info, I'll actually get the energy audit to you, but it's,
I mean, you
amount
must
of,
know approximately,
I forget we stopped that, I tell you what happened with this project, it started in 2007,
yeah.
and it ended, about 2012, so we haven't reset it for almost 4 years.
All I'm doing is
Yeah.
rephrasing
Yeah.
Donnie's comment.
Yeah.
Donnie seems to suggest that the solar, you can't generate electricity through solar means to compete with what's out there from NB Power.
Well, it's
You can't-
11.5 cents per kilowatt hour,
Is it?
basically now.
Okay,
And that's at 3.7 cents per watt installed.
okay,
$4 per watt is 12 cents.
okay.
So that our rate right now with tax is 12.18 with tax, so solar's cheaper at $4 a watt now.
Okay, so 12 versus 4. So,
12 cents at $4 a watt installed
Yeah.
taxes.
yeah. So, 7 years ago, or sorry, it'd be 9 years ago, when we visioned the St. Michael's project, was gonna be all thermal.
Yeah.
And because to do the same amount of energy back then would have been 300 and something panels with PV. But the issue is with thermal, you're done in March. They're not doing anything from March to November. You don't need the heat at church. It's 89% heat in the air. So why not net meter, grid tie from those months that it's not being, and now that solar's more efficient and you get 305 watt panels, and now you get solar panels that you can actually, it's called passive, where you can actually tilt them by hand. So in the summer you want them flat, in the winter you want it low at latitude. So you can actually do 10 pole mounts and just manually, with ballast, tilt them so they're 45% more efficient that way. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. But you could actually and so now instead of the 305 panels we were expecting, you only need 150 to do the same amount. So what I'm getting at is that, there are improvements not only in the capacity of the panels, but the price of the panels have gone down like over 50% in the last 5 years alone. But like Don said, it's not the panels, it's the wiring, the controllers, but one of the new innovations that both Don and I talked about and Fundy Solar is that batteries are always the worst necessary evil. And there's a new system called the saltwater energy system that will go 0%. It's called an Aqueon saltwater battery system. That's supposed to be, the system. They come out with good training for my students. It's a really, and it'll go down to 0, and everything's recyclable, which is great, So there are some technical solutions for solar storage, what I'm getting at, that are pretty innovative, And I know what MB Power are looking at Telsa, right? You're looking at it at one time.
Powerwall, yeah.
Yeah,
that's the
Powerwall, yeah.
Can we ask a question related to approvals and certifications? One of the big frustrations Renewables MB have in the past, we had a whole suite of case studies, but they're all sort of the backyard mechanics, the guys who are really ingenious in their own right. But when it came to code, once we started to put them on a website, we get the province looking at these things, and virtually we had to eliminate 2/3 of them because none of them were certified. So how is that world going to go forward? How big are those barriers of certifications and approvals?
There's a reason why plumbers are plumbers, and lawyers are lawyers, and accountants are accountants. There's a reason why NBCC exists. There's a reason why UMB exists. We can't all be experts. I make an analogy I make with a lot of these sort of backyard tankers and such. Actually, two sort of points there. Number one, not a lot, but some of these people, if you're familiar with the history of Apple, that little company, there were really two guys that started, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, right? Jobs could sell the stuff and Wozniak could make the stuff. You can't be both. Anyone thinks it can be both, they're delusional. You can't be both, period. Gee, I almost looked like Donald Trump there for a second. It's a beautiful thing! Put my hand back in my pocket, that was awful. So that was number one, but number two was building capacity. And that's a buzzword for having a lot of people that actually know what they're doing in a space. Places like NBCC, education training in the renewable energy space, so very, very, very important. Unbelievably important. Oh my God, I did that again. I do that one a lot. I can't believe I had some today, so he's not going to show up at the next debate if Hillary Clinton shows up. Seriously, I read that in the New Yorker. It's like, did I just read that? Anyway, sorry. Squirrel. So Kevin has a lot of vision and great ideas for building capacity in educating and training people at a young age, and I think that is so very critical, because if we don't know what we're doing, it ain't going to happen. Quite frankly, it's as simple as that. And it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg, and if we don't get our act together with respect to starting that training and education, now we're going to miss the boat. We're going to miss the boat. And one of you mentioned, I was in Germany back in May on a smart grid education mission. I visited about 20 companies there, all in the smart grid space, and we over a beer or 2 or 3 or 4. We're in Germany, so maybe 10 or 15 or 20. We all came to the conclusion that in this smart grid space, renewable energy, how the Internet of Things, how 5 years from now, 10 years from now, your refrigerator, your lights will have IP addresses. That train has left the station. That train is barreling by, and we, from an economic perspective, environmental perspective, we're either going to be on that train or get run over. period. It's as simple as that. We need to be on that friggin' train. So, and that starts with this place right here, you're sitting in right here, where that has to start.
So whether it's plumbing inspectors, electrical inspectors, that thermal panel at the youth house needed a plumbing inspection, to answer your question. You need electrical inspector, and you need electricians that, and plumbers that are certified too. So there's 4 types of people. And someone has to be the solar guy, right? So you need a solar installer that's done it before, you know, that knows what they're doing, for pressures and, you know, all the zone valves that you helped me out, and what else in there? The tanks themselves. There's 2 solar tanks, and then you have the MB power traditional tanks. So you've got to know how to connect those 2 together to make them work in the proper zones for that particular application.